Get ready to uncover how schools manipulate students' thoughts, stifle their potential, and how politicians steal money in the future of America from kids. Welcome to the JV Social.
Alright there, everybody. I want to give you a warm welcome to Operation Anti-Indoctrination. I'm your host, JB, and oh boy, does the crazy week continue. The crazy week continues. As schools start to reopen, we see more and more stories of just incredible and just insanity, absolute insanity. And unfortunately, most of it is like the racial stuff, which, to be honest, I don't even like talking about. I mean, it's not a fun subject, but it's all that's happening. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of other just normal, regular, typical indoctrination that's going around, but this is everywhere. This is nuts. I've never seen anything like this before in the school system, where you just have total racial indoctrination, concepts like critical race theory and whiteness and anti-racist and all this stuff, you know, these euphemisms and these organizations which are being extremely detrimental to the integrity of our nation right now, that are destroying the integrity of our nation, unfortunately. And then we have a ruling class who has no idea what they're doing, who are either half asleep or actively complicit in this whole scheme right here. But this should be fun. So let's see here. So the University of Michigan in Dearborn has decided that it's a wonderful idea to fight racism with segregation. I know that might seem like a very weird concept to some of you, but it's apparently it's the new norm. It's just, you know, it's rad. It's new. It's in fashion. Segregation. I don't know if it's like discrimination, or if it's, separate but equal, but this is some pretty unheard of stuff in the last few decades, where you have literally you have mandated segregation for little woke conferences or something. Let's see. So they're gonna have like a bi-monthly cafe meetings for the BIPOCs, is what they're calling them, meaning Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and then the non-POCs. You're not a POC. You can't be with the BIPOCs, is apparently what they're saying here. So, if you're white, you have your own little conversation, and then if you're a BIPOC, you have your own little conversation in your own little cafe or whatever. And apparently, it's going to be racially segregated and bi-monthly, so you can discuss oppression and anti-racism and all that fun stuff. Look, this is literally This is regressiveness taking full center stage here. We're, trying to go back. Segregation. Let's be clear right now. Segregation, which almost always has some discriminatory undertones, whether, if you go back in history, segregation in the United States and, South Africa, it always had some discriminatory undertones, and it's no different this time. It's just that, well, I think the race discriminating against might be a little different, but it's no difference here, because let's be clear, discrimination against and segregation against any race or ethnicity is unjust, completely unjust and wrong. I don't think that should be a controversial thing to say, but apparently that is. Apparently we have to do this. We have to have segregation, because that's the only way we can do racial justice, is by, I guess, like, going back to how it was, right? Okay, I've had enough of that. That's ridiculous. Nobody likes that, Oh god, my desk is like a mess here. I got homeschooling and I got podcast stuff, and so my desk is shot. But anyway, there has been somebody found a unlisted video on Joe Biden's YouTube channel. He has one of those. No subscribers, but, Joe Biden has a YouTube channel where he did an interview with the head of the NEA, the National Education Association, the political hacks at the National Education Association. I think this was the head, Lily Eskelsen Garcia. That's who it was. He did an interview with her. So this NEA lady asks, how do you feel about charter schools? Because you know how we feel. We're the NEA and we hate charter schools. We want to get rid of them. Charter schools being basically like private schools that are funded by the government. They generally do a better job than public schools generally. Maybe not always, but the NEA is very, very, very anti-charter school, as are the rest of the teachers' unions. So the head of the NEA here is asking Biden, how do you feel? You know how we feel. And Biden says, quote, I feel the same way you feel. But that wasn't a quoting, but he says that, quote, no privately funded charter school will receive or private okay, this guy's grammar is all messed up here, but he says that no charter school will receive a penny of federal funding. That's what he says. None. No private charter school receives a penny of federal money. None. That's what he says. Got it in the end there. We got it. No charter schools will receive a penny of federal funding, meaning that they will just be functioning like private schools, and that's gonna... Look, I'm not super pro-charter school. I don't think it's the number one issue right now, but I think we've all seen those lotteries that they have where parents are so desperate to get their kids out of the public school system, in the cities predominantly, that they literally line up in a massive lottery hoping, praying to get their kids out of the public school system. And Joe Biden is saying to the NEA head, nope, no charter schools, we'll get them out. No, we're just going to fund public schools, these horrible places of just, indoctrination and dumbing down and the low literacy and horrible math and all that. We're only going to fund them. We're not going to fund charter schools because we can't do that. Otherwise, they might not be indoctrinated nearly as much. I don't even think charter schools are that much better than public schools, but that's what Joe Biden is saying. So you can make of that what you will. I have somewhat mixed feelings about charter schools, but I do think they are overall probably a positive. Oh gosh, we gotta get back into this. Oh, I don't like talking about this. I don't. It's not fun. None of this is like super fun, but some of it is. But we have at Arizona State University, you have an anti-racism assignment being given to the kids. This is I'm going to quote from the assignment here, quote, for the next 7 days, you need to commit to do at least one practice or idea around doing the inner work of anti-racism, unquote. And you're going to be forced to listen to a podcast, I think, to one of 5 podcasts every day. And you're going to talk about anti-racism, which I guess is like, it's not enough to just, not be racist. You have to be an anti-racist, I guess, is the concept. You have to be an anti-racist now. You can't just, be cool and not discriminate against people. You got to be an anti-racist, whatever the heck that means. I guess that means saying that, I don't know, all white people are racist or whatever, but that's, that's the narrative, so why not? Why not? And then here we go. So we have educators who are this is, I guess, an education meeting where they're defining the idea of whiteness. Now, what whiteness means, I'm not entirely sure of, but apparently, according to them, quote, whiteness is the construction of global systems and structures that reinforce the inherent values, norms, and advantages of white supremacy and normalization, unquote. That's what they define as whiteness. I have no idea what they're talking about. But this is what teachers are being told to teach, meaning the teachers are being indoctrinated, which we know. We know that the teachers are, for the most part, just, cogs in the wheel. They're not really they're not really charting their own course. They're not teaching what they think should be taught. They're teaching what they're being told to teach. So that's not a surprise. And here we have another definition over here, quote, whiteness, a systemic racial social construct backed by no scientific evidence, created to benefit white people by unequally distributing power and privilege through society's norms, traditions, and institutions, unquote. So I guess they're trying to define our society right now as a whiteness-filled society or something like that. I don't know. I have no idea what they're talking about, but So many fun stories. And then we have, I mean, there's been just I can't get to all of them. We'd be here all day, but we have, Black Lives Matter flags. By the way, nobody thinks Black Lives don't matter. Okay, we're not bad people. So I don't know what the controversy is, other than the organization is a little bit different here, right? And then we have the LGBTQ something something flag that's flying here. You know, make of that what you will. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the whole LGBTQ issue. I think, that's not really my area of expertise, and there's much more important things to talk about. Much more important things here. All right, I'm just scrolling through. I don't know if there's anything else here that I should get to, but anyway, we need to get into a little history here, because there's a reason for all this. There's a reason that look, the idea of a conspiracy right now is so pervasive in our society. There's a conspiracy against America. There's a conspiracy against Western civilization. It's so pervasive right now in a lot of circles, and the truth is that their people are kind of right. It's just that they don't usually look in the right places. The right place you want to look is the school system and its history. And I think the school system, if you look at the school system's history, in my opinion, it explains all of this. All of it. The violence, the rioting, it explains all of it. Now, obviously, the official reason that this is all happening is because of the admittedly wrong and tragic death of George Floyd. But in my opinion, he was the spark that lit this fire that the school system had been building for over a century now, to be honest. Over a century, but we have to go back here. So, I want to go back to the 1880s. Stay with me here, please. All right, you got to hear this. So, if we go back to the 1880s, you have two burgeoning, explosive, awesome movements that were taking place in academia and colleges in America and in Britain and in Germany. These ideas are eugenics, where you are trying to scientifically perfect the human race, and experimental psychology, which is sort of similar in a way, but it's experimental psychology in this context is where you're basically trying to program people like robots. So the eugenics stuff began, most of us know the story, I guess, with Darwin, with Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, where he said that the European civilized races will almost certainly take over and exterminate the uncivilized races, is what he said. So that's nice, right? And then that was followed up by Francis Galton, who was much, much worse than Darwin, and he really got the idea off the ground. We had 4 U.S. presidents who subscribed to this theory. Woodrow Wilson, Theodore Roosevelt, Herbert Hoover, and Franklin Roosevelt all subscribed to the idea of eugenics. They wanted to scientifically perfect the human race, along with a number of other very, very famous people you've probably heard of. And then you have experimental psychology, which started in Leipzig, Germany, with a guy named Wilhelm Wundt. Wilhelm Wundt, this guy Wilhelm, was of the opinion that the soul, the psyche, God, all of that didn't exist. In fact, the only thing that existed was stuff that he personally could measure. So, I can measure the amount of cells in your body, but I can't measure your soul or your psychology or your nature, right? I can measure kind of how you're raised. I can kind of measure your nurture, but I can't measure your nature. That was what Darwin thought, and he therefore believed that all there was to a man was stimuli and experiences. So therefore, and this is experimental psychology, therefore you could program somebody like a robot. You could program somebody like they were, into whatever you wanted them to be, really. And many other people said that down the line. B.F. Skinner, I don't know if any of you have heard of him, but he said I can make a child into whatever I want him to be. So, some pretty scary people here. But as it turns out, these guys, specifically Wundt, actually, Wilhelm Wundt, trained a number of these ideas kind of fused, and that was thanks to Wundt. There were several Americans, you don't have to remember the names, but James McKean Cattell, Charles Judd, James Earl Russell, and G. Stanley Hall, that all got the got Wundt's education and all also became eugenicists. And they would be joined by John Dewey and Edward Thorndike, who we've talked about, who also believed in the experimental psychology and strongly believed in eugenics. But this combination would be terrifying when they got into high society of academia, most notably Columbia University and the University of Chicago. Because they wanted to use the institution of schooling to A, selectively breed students and create an underclass in order to ultimately perfect the human race, and B, program them with the correct set of stimuli so that all their thoughts would be induced. So the idea here is to basically make the kids into the perfect people, the morally perfected people that have been induced to think the right things, and physically perfected people and racially perfected people, all through the school system. But to do this, they had to accomplish a few things. See, they knew that a literate and intelligent and individualistic population would never accept these ideas. They knew that it would just be, it would be all but impossible because these ideas were so insane. Basically, they were somewhat conscious of how insane their ideas were. So what they realized was that the kids, in order to ultimately accomplish this, would have to be illiterate or hate reading so much that they would never do it. They would just stop reading. Get the kids to stop reading. Hate it, don't do it, don't know how to do it, all that stuff. And same basically goes for math, history, and science, although the reading was really the number one thing. Reading was the number one thing, and they advocated illiteracy as a virtue. Some of the Germany guys and their surrogates, they said illiteracy was basically a good thing, that it was cool. And this way, once school had become an intellectual vacuum, they could now induce desirable reactions in children. And this was also helped by the Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov. We've talked a lot about him, where he did experiments on how to drive children insane in the Soviet laboratories, which were then imported into the school system. I can provide documentation for any of this if you want to email me. But with all this, now that you have illiterate intellectual hating. They hated the intellectual idea, kids, which is what we are. We hate the intellectual. We hate knowledge. We hate intelligence. That's what we've become in school, largely, not entirely, but largely. And we've also become, in many cases, illiterate, or we've just hated. The way to get a kid to hate reading is to teach them whole word, because the process becomes annoying and laborious and difficult. That's the way you do it, and that's the way it's done right now, and that's why so many kids I know, probably a majority, either don't read or really dislike it or even hate it. And same basically goes for math, where, they never do it, they hate it, all that stuff. So nowadays, the schools are not doing that. I know it looks like they are, I know you're being told they are as a parent, but the schools are not actually trying to teach your kids. All they're trying to do is induce the correct reactions with stimuli, and with stimuli, and they're also being set up to have one group go into the elite of society and one group become an underclass, and then from there you can kind of try to selectively breed them. That's what's happening tacitly. Nobody even knows about it anymore. Nobody's directing this anymore. There's no head of this anymore. It's just the system's become self-propagating. There's no head of this anymore. But that's what's happening in school. So we wonder why our society has become so morally bankrupt, so morally degenerate, I guess, for lack of a better term, where we've lost all sense of tradition, we've lost all sense of self, we've lost all sense of dignity, we've lost all regards for intelligence. When you're a kid now, this is what happens to you when you're a kid right now. First, in some cases, maybe you'll be raised gender neutral, or, if you're a boy, you'll be given the Barbie dolls, because we removed all that, which was part of the plan. And then you go to school, and in many cases, you're given mind-altering drugs, which you don't oftentimes need. I mean, there are some cases where maybe Ritalin, Adderall, maybe in some cases, kids need them. But in most cases, you don't need them. And But you have to, because we have to get you to focus. We have to subdue you. We have to make you into a little slave to the system. That way we can indoctrinate you very, very easily, and then dumb you down so that you're either illiterate or you hate reading, and make you hate math. And then if somehow you survive all of that, you're shipped off to college, which makes it all, it ramps it up, it ramps it up to 11, and you're beaten over the head brutally with the indoctrination. And then when you're an adult, the media keeps you docile and subdued so that you can become a cog in the wheel in some system which does not care about you. And there's a very high chance you'll have a kid out of wedlock, or we have divorce rates that have been massive for some 50 years now. So we have broken families, alcoholism, drugs, suicide. It's all gone up ever since we've lost our morals. It's all gone up. But this is all for the utopia. Remember that. It's all for the utopia. They thought that these extremely intelligent men, honestly thought that this would create a utopia. The world we're living in right now. They thought that by the year 2020, they probably thought that this would be a utopia. We'd be living in a perfect society where everyone would be happy and joyful, and we'd all have short work hours, beautiful cities, beautiful women, actual families. But no. That's not how it is. And now our society has been destroyed. Our society, our American culture, which, believe it or not, does actually exist. Our American culture is all but gone. The family is all but gone. You have all these social problems. You have a morally bankrupt society. Now you can do anything. Now we have this, this Netflix show. It's cool, Maybe there's been some backlash to it, but, we'll get there. Give it 10 years. The Overton window will shift, and it will shift hard, and it's going to keep shifting. It has been shifting, really, for the last 50 years. It has been shifting, and it will continue to shift, because that's just how it's going, because the school system is going to keep running our country into the ground. The school system right now, our nation right now, the United States of America is unsustainable. I don't know if it's going to, at this rate, what we are doing right now is unsustainable in so many ways. At this rate, I don't know if it's going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 2 months. I don't know. But what's going to hit the fan before too long here. And when it does, it will not be pretty. And the school system will be to blame, but of course everyone else will keep pointing the finger at useless garbage that actually doesn't matter. Because that's what we've resigned ourselves to doing now, is just pointing our finger at, oh, racism, or, oh my gosh, the left, the right, the Republicans, the Democrats. It's all of you guys. It's all of you. All of you are driving our society into the ground. We have to do something here. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how we solve this. I don't know how we even begin to look at this. But hopefully we can save this country. I don't know, truly. But we're going to try. We're going to try here. This will be my life's work. Hopefully this will be quite a few other people's life's work, trying to rebuild our country into something that is actually united, and there's a sense of American identity. Not, racial, but American identity really is what we need here. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that was a chill. I guess you're probably watching this on a Thursday. That was a chill Thursday, right? But tomorrow's Friday, so that's pretty cool. Friday. Anyway, if you could please leave a like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and if you're on another platform or on YouTube, you can share it. If you want to email me, my email is linked in the description, and it's jbsocialshow@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram. I hate them, but they're necessary. And that's about it. So, until next time, I've been your host, JB. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.